Well, it's with heavy hearts that we pass along some really tough news. At the age of 94, Vin Scully has passed away. 67 years as the voice of the Dodgers, the voice of baseball, and really will be both those things forever. We've lost the greatest ever to do it.
It's time for Dodger baseball.
It was 1958 when 30-year-old Vin Scully brought his voice across the continent to living rooms and radios of Southern California. For the next 58 years, he expounded on the pitches, hits, and runs in front of him, while expanding his love of the game to generations of listeners who, through Vin, came to know the human sides of the heroes they cheered. As popular as he became among the millions who lent their ears, it was his humility, his keep-out-of-the-spotlight demeanor that distinguished him.
Ladies and gentlemen, Vin Scully.
But in his final season in the booth that bore his name, Vin Scully had no choice but to accept the fact that the summer of 16 would be all about him.
You can't blame us for trying to hold on to you as long as we can. And you can't stop us from saying that we love you.
Vin's final game at Dodger Stadium would cap his career in Vin Scully style, while the players, one by one, tipped their caps, or nodded, or waved in appreciation.
Are they waving up here? Oh, that's terrific. Holy mackerel. So I really appreciate it. I don't know who planned it or who started it. At first I thought that Kendrick was waving to his family, and then I saw Turner waving, and then fellas in the booth saying, no, they're waving to you.
Maybe it's just a myth, or maybe folklore, that the baseball gods always sent an extra out Vin's way so he could complete one of his stories. It doesn't matter. In his final home game, those gods worked overtime, giving him an extra inning to provide the moment, the magic, worthy of one more memorable Vin Scully call.
Swung on a high fly ball to deep left field. The Dodger bench empties. Would you believe a home run? And the Dodgers have clinched the division and will celebrate on schedule.
And this is for you, my friend.
I have always felt that you folks in the stands have been far, far important to me. You have given me enthusiasm. You have given me young at heart. Believe me when I tell you, I've needed you far more than you needed me.
Backstage Dodgers is brought to you by Cadillac.
Well, if you happen to just tune in, Vin Scully passed away tonight at the age of 94. Vin fell in love with baseball when he was 8 years old. He points to an individual day when he was 8 in 1936. He was on his walk home from school and happened to walk by a laundromat where they had the score displayed in the window. It's a pop fly left side of the infield for Trey Turner, and Mercedes is out number 2. And it said Yankees 18, Giants 4. And for whatever reason, 8-year-old Vin said, man, I feel bad for those Giants.
The date of that game Vin cites was October 2nd, 1936. Exactly 80 years to the day later, he called his final baseball game at the Giants' home stadium on the last day of the regular season. And he was already being hailed as the greatest broadcaster who ever lived. On his last day on the job, Vin was joined in the booth by one of the greatest Giants in history.
We got something to show you, Vin, because everybody that ever broadcast this booth will know that this is the last,
Really,
your last broadcast was here.
Vin Scully final MLB broadcast. Sergio Diel's slider hit in the air to left center, coming over is Pagan. He puts it away. And the Giants are the wild card team. The city is going wild, appropriately enough, and they are heading for New York. I have said enough for a lifetime, and for the last time, I wish you all a very pleasant good afternoon.
Vin Scully was and is and always will be the Dodgers, and his voice will always be the voice of baseball. Back to Price. That does it. The Dodgers win this one for Vin. 9-5 over the San Francisco Giants. Paying tribute now in the ballpark. Classy gesture by the Giants to remember Vin on the video board here in San Francisco.
Good. Shock.
He was a friend, and he inspired me to be better. And, you know, there's not a better storyteller, and I think everyone considers him family, you know, and he was in our living rooms for so many generations, and so he lived a fantastic life, a legacy that will live on forever. I'm just so proud to say that he was a friend and he's family.
Yeah, Vin broadcasted his last game in this booth, October 2nd, 2016. In his closing words, he said, "All I can do is tell you what I wish for you. May God give you for every storm a rainbow, for every tear a smile, for every care a promise, and a blessing in each trial. For every problem life sends, a faithful friend to share, for every sigh a sweet song, and an answer for each prayer."
I think it's hard to fully capture what he meant to so many people. I think that's the thing, right? It's like it's a fan base and it's a city, but it's generations of the fan base, generations of the city, generations of baseball fans, not just Dodger fans and people from LA. It's across the country. In Vin's case, where he was solo for a lot of his career, it was like he was talking directly to the listener. And so people have had this connection a notch beyond what even the greatest connections you normally hear between the fan base and the announcers. What Vin had with people was special, and what people felt from Vin was special.
When I got the call that in fact he had passed away. It was a gut punch. He had meant so much to me. He was the guy that I wanted to be like growing up as a kid. And I was so fortunate to spend all these years with him, from an idol and an icon to a friend to a mentor, who, by the way, was Babe Ruth, the best who ever did it.
He was the best. And I think to verify that, not only hearing him and how much you enjoyed hearing him do a game, I think it's been verified by Al Michaels. I think it's been verified by Bob Costas. I think it's been verified by Joe Buck. It's been verified by John Miller. And when those guys talk about pieces of Vin's broadcast that they mimicked, Al Michaels saying you don't care about the game until you care about the players, well, that's from Vin. Bob Costas, with his great breadth of history of whatever sport he's covering, that came from Vin.
What's the essential difference between baseball on the radio and baseball on TV?
When I go into the radio booth, I bring all my own paints, I bring my brushes, I bring my palette, I mix them all up. I've got a blank canvas, I have broad strokes and slim strokes and shaded areas, and finally at the end of 3 hours, I back off, and that's the best I can do on that given night, that painting.
It's like a personal loss for a lot of families and people around the Los Angeles area that feel like a member of their family just passed away. And in some ways, I think it's true, because they knew when they heard that voice that all was right in the world, because they were about to settle in and listen to Dodger baseball.
Hi, everybody, and a very pleasant good afternoon to you, wherever you may be. The Dodgers at Olympic Stadium in Montreal trying to make it 5 in a row and another great road trip. The Dodgers.
Vin Scully was always that gentleman that we could turn on the radio or the television, and for those of us who were privileged enough to know him, it was like a very warm and gentle hand being placed on our shoulder when we turned on and listened to the Dodger broadcast, as if to say, hey, if you've had a bad day, I'm here for you, and let's spend a couple of hours together. Just pull up the chair. We're going to talk about Dodger baseball.
Well, we'll get to the starting lineups and to the second game of the Twilight Night doubleheader. So pull up a chair and spend some time with us. We'll be back right after this.
Vin was blessed with a voice that was inherently pleasing. I mean, you could listen to Vin Scully, for hours on end. There's just something about the tone and the way that he spoke.
Oh, the thumbsucker's thumb may look wrinkled and wet and withered and white as snow. But the taste of a thumb is the sweetest taste yet, as only we thumbsuckers know. My dear.
I always thought Vin was a master storyteller. You hear so much now in sports about how important it is to tell stories around our games. And, Vin was decades and decades ahead of the curve on that issue.
Actually, the term Jolly Roger was based on the red flag. In French, it was something like Joli Rouge, which turns out to be Jolly Roger. Oh, you're very welcome. I just pass this stuff along absolutely free, no charge.
There's a moment when he did the game where Henry Aaron passed the Babe.
Fastball is a high drive into deep left center field. Buckner goes back to the fence. It is gone.
He gives a vivid description of the game. Then he lets the crowd roar. He doesn't intrude on that at all, although it was a radio broadcast back to L.A. And then he came and painted the picture of the scene on the field.
What a marvelous moment for the country and the world. A black man is getting a standing ovation in the Deep South for breaking a record of an all-time baseball idol. And it is a great moment for all of us, and particularly for Henry Aaron.
For me, that stands alone as the greatest bit of sports broadcasting ever, because it elevated our craft, not just a sports moment, but the whole larger sociological aspect of it, that time and place in history, and he captured it. He was brilliant, and the best there ever was, and for me, the best there ever will be.
tonight will be special. There are a lot of people who, as soon as Vin passed, looked at the schedule and said, man, we got to be at Dodger Stadium when the team comes home. Just a few days later, I was thinking of that driving in. It's good, I think, that we were close to the end of the road trip. And we get to do this, and I don't know if there's closure that'll come from it, but this needed to happen. We needed to all be together at Dodger Stadium, which was Vin's home for so many years. I think that it's going to be a really special night.
Shock of what happened on Tuesday, and then as the news breaks, there's a lot of sadness. And then slowly, as we've gotten away from the announcement of his death, I think that people start to smile and reminisce, and it's moving a little bit from mourning to a celebration of life, to think of everything that he experienced, and then the love of his life, to be with her now and to be with other members of his family. And I think tonight, no one will feel alone, because everybody's going to be feeling about the same thing.
We are very grateful to all who've been sharing their respects here at 1000 Vin Scully Avenue and across the country. At this time, we ask that you please join us in a moment of silence for our friend, Vin. At this time, would you please direct your attention to Dodger Vision?
Hi, everybody, and a very pleasant good evening to you wherever you may be.
Growing up in Southern California, it didn't matter where you were. If you heard that voice on the radio or on the TV, you knew, the Dodgers were playing. And very appreciative and grateful that I had the opportunity to come over here and play in this organization and get to know him and get to consider him a friend. He was just a very, unique, special human that, the game of baseball was very lucky to have.
There's a lot of history here, and there's a lot of people that have come through, and it's just a storied franchise all the way around. But it almost starts with Vin. Vin's been through it all, and just such a special man. I'm grateful and thankful I got to know him as well as I did, and all the people that he's called no-hitters, perfect games, World Series, all these things. And for me to be a very tiny, tiny, small part of that is really cool.
Years ago, some of you guys were here. We saw that video of Charlie going deep, clinching the division for the Dodgers. It was Vin's last game at Dodger Stadium, so it couldn't have been more fitting. And that night, that day, Vin had a banner hung below his booth that said, "I'll miss you, Vin." So tonight, Joe and Oral, will you do us all the great pleasure of unveiling a new banner? You will will be missed. We love you. We will think about you every day. Every game we come here, every fan that shows up to Dodger Stadium, there's a reason you will always be remembered. You will always be linked to these 5 words. It's time for Dodger baseball. So now, 50,000 Dodger fans, get on your feet. On the count of 3, yell as loud as you can so Mr. Vin can hear us from Blue Heaven. 1, 2, 3. Let's go!
The last number of days have been very difficult for all of us because we lost a friend. We lost that gentle hand on our shoulders saying, hey, things are going to be okay. And for Vin Scully, thank goodness he was in our lives.
Knowing that I'm following the greatest ever to do this job, knowing that he's the only announcer Dodger fans have had since the team moved here. All they've had is the greatest ever to do it, the greatest storyteller there ever was. So trying to take elements from what Vin did and what made him so special, knowing I'm never going to be half of what Vin was as an announcer, and trying to incorporate some of those things into what we do to continue his legacy as best we can and to continue hopefully fulfilling that responsibility.
I only knew Vin to be wrong once, and that's when he said that he needed the fans more than the fans needed him. Vinny was wrong that day. In the last number of days we've had, we've come to full circle, is that we needed him.
You and I have been friends for a long time, but I know in my heart that I've always needed you more than you've ever needed me. And I'll miss our time together more than I can say. But you know what? There will be a new day and eventually a new year. And when the upcoming winter gives way to spring, rest assured, once again, it will be time for Dodger baseball. So this is Vin Scully wishing you a very pleasant good afternoon wherever you may be.